This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. Here's your host, Corey Tusick.
This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. I have Aubrey Strobel she's with Lolli. Lolli.com is the website, at Try Lolli. Aubrey, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So before we get into everything that Lolli does, what got you into Bitcoin? You know, how long have you been into it?
I've been into Bitcoin since 2017, and it was because a bunch of my roommates were working in finance, but they were buying Bitcoin and Ethereum and different altcoins on these exchanges, getting these airdrops. It was really a crazy time. And so I thought that was sort of a signal if people in traditional finance were getting into like a new asset class that I should look into it. And so I actually was working at a more political PR firm and switched over to a full-time crypto blockchain firm on Wall Street. And I just saw an opening for it. It was like a startup, and it was in my same field, but I was super interested into crypto and where it was going. So I just applied, and I've never left. I've just been here for about four or 5 years now.
So you went down the rabbit hole and there was no looking back?
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it was definitely a journey. I mean, you go through those bear markets, you see like the ups and downs and the cycles of things. And there's definitely times of like, wow, what am I getting myself into? But the real like technology and ideas behind Bitcoin, blockchain is what really intrigued me to the space. It just makes sense. Mm-hmm. So now I'm here. Yeah, I've been here and at Lolli.
Yeah. No, you're a Bitcoin personality. So if you were to explain Bitcoin in its simplest terms, I've been doing this with people because, like I said, the podcast is this is my learning engine. I got into it big like last spring, so I was very lucky. But I know that a lot of people, there's going to be a new class of 2021, even some class of 2020 that are getting into it. So how would you break it down for people, in its simplest terms?
Bitcoin is money. And I think we need to take the digital side out of it and all those other, it's a digital currency. It is money, and it can be shared with anyone in the world. And you don't have to have a middleman to sort of get involved in that process like a bank. And so it really is a currency of freedom. It's the way money was designed and set up. So a lot of people think about money. When they think about Bitcoin, there's like this wall of confusion around it, because when they hear digital, or they hear crypto or cryptic, it has this like layer of like, oh, what does that mean? But, you think about your bank account, and they're not like at the bank moving cash, when you're transferring money, like physical cash. It's already digital. It's already on some sort of Excel spreadsheet. So a lot of the way you're already transacting is digital, but this is just a more true version of what, I guess the banks are calling digital money. So it is a money that you can hold on your own, and you don't need anyone else to hold it for you. So it really is a money of freedom and money to people.
Yeah. And that's what I've been trying to explain to people, like, because they get hung up on the digital end, they're like, it's a coin I can't touch, and I think that like it being called a coin is a little misleading. And I explain to people, I'm like, it's basically like a huge bank ledger that the entire world can see and verify is accurate, but it also keeps everything private. And I don't know, maybe that helps, explain to people. It's like balancing your checkbook, except it's one big checkbook for the whole world. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think that like what gets people lost in that for the most part? Do you think it's the fact that they're thinking it's supposed to be a coin, or, just not being able to wrap their head around the digital anything?
I think there's so many things. Bitcoin came, about in popularity because of like the Silk Road. There's things like that gives people a negative connotation about it. And I think people just don't understand how dirty cash and fiat is, like how many dirty dealings and market manipulation. We saw that with the GameStop short squeeze, that whole thing. There's been market manipulation for years. There's been illicit transactions for years. There's been insider trading for years. There's been all these things on fiat rails. And so people like think of Bitcoin like, oh, well, we don't trust it. I think it's really just a fear of the unknown. I think when you get involved in this space, which is fun. I mean, everything that comes around has this like fear of the unknown. I think it's actually kind of psychological. If we like take a step back, we think about internet. Your parents used to tell you, like don't meet strangers on the internet, or don't go. And now we're on a Zoom call because reached out to me on the internet, and I'm like happy to chat with you. Yeah. Talking to people on the internet is not a scary thing anymore as it used to be. And so I think fear is really what stops people from getting involved. And sadly, a lot of people didn't get involved earlier on because of that fear, and now they're kind of having that FOMO moment where they wish they would have gone in earlier and understood, or took the time to understand it. I think. Cryptography, cryptocurrency, those terms, cryptic sounds bad. And I think words matter, and there's not much we can do about it. It is what it is. And it's not wrong. It just has the same root that can sound bad, that has a negative connotation. But people I hope Bitcoin and crypto and blockchain, we can use terms that people like. We have NFTs now and things like that. I hope we can bridge it to something that, someone on the street with like a basic level education can understand.
Yeah. And so you mentioned NFTs. Is that something, are you like a Bitcoin maximalist, or do you dabble in a different, coins, or are you just, I'm curious on your personal end?
Well, at Lolli, we only offer Bitcoin, and I guess we'll get back to like what Lolli is in a minute. But on my personal side of things, I think Bitcoin, in terms of a store of value currency, is the only thing that people should really be investing in. This is not investment advice.
Yeah. But typical disclaimer.
Disclaimer is at the bottom. DeFi, I think there's a future of decentralization of finance, apps, games, things like that. I think those things will exist. It's not what I personally work on. I've invested in altcoins and different things like that. So I have a few NFTs. Actually, I didn't buy that. People just like gave to me. So I own like 6 now. Yeah. But I think there is a future for a lot of these different areas. But if we're talking about like a global reserve currency, if we're talking about something to put your money in as a hedge against inflation and the dollar, it's always Bitcoin. There's, obviously traders and people that want to make a quick buck off of just like day trading. That's totally fine. Not saying you can't do that. Like we're talking mainstream adoption, just Bitcoin, everyone.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't understand why those other things people get so defensive and like they have to be better than Bitcoin. And I'm like, why don't you let it just be what it is? And it'll find its way naturally. So Lolli is strictly Bitcoin. And I'll let you explain it to me, but just curious because Bitcoin rewards, and to be frank, I'm getting in more and more into Bitcoin, and my wife loves rewards of all kinds. It's like surveys, like random things that she has been doing since like college. So I was like, well, I have to explore this rewards area. And there's a lot of different things going on, with different cards coming out. So I was curious. And I figured the best way to learn about it was to talk to you. So what is Lolli? How does it work? How do I make a bunch of money off of it?
Yes, totally. Lolli is a Bitcoin rewards company, and we give you free Bitcoin back, fractions of Bitcoin, when you shop online from like 1,000 brands. So people get caught up in owning a full Bitcoin, but you can slowly accumulate like fractions, which are called Satoshis, and add to your wallet. And over time, that your purchase could basically be paid for itself, which is great. And what an equivalent to Lolli is maybe people are more familiar with, is like a Honey or a Ebates. If you're familiar with those companies who give you coupons or they give you cash back. But Lolli is better because you are passively investing in Bitcoin. You don't have to put your own money into it. You're just shopping like you normally would, and you're getting free Bitcoin for your purchase. So it's almost silly to not activate the browser extension and get the free Bitcoin back, because you're just, leaving money on the table that could be eventually double, triple. Some people have seen like their reward 16x from
Mm-hmm.
March of last year when we had that huge sell off. So there's a lot of money to be made passively if people don't feel like they can have they don't have enough money to invest at the moment. You can get Bitcoin for your groceries, things that you have to buy anyway, and you're getting a kickback from it. So a great hack is to use your, like you were saying, credit card. If you have a credit card, you can pay for your purchases, get the credit card points, and then you can also get the rewards back with Lolli in Bitcoin. So you should really always be gaming the system and finding the ways that you can get the most back for your dollars.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it is just an extension that you put into your browser, and then as you shop for stuff, if it qualifies, I assume then it'll just automatically add into your. Is it a fixed percentage or?
Yeah, so we have merchants that are up to 30% across the board. We have people that are, a little bit lower. It kind of depends on which business it is. The rates change often, so check back and see what the percentage is. But you can earn, people can buy mattress on Lolli, for example. Eat Sleep is one of our brands. Casper Purple. Those are big purchases that you do not want to not make without getting Bitcoin back. You can get like $200 back in Bitcoin just on purchase. And we've seen people do it. And then over a few months, that could be worth $800. And so it's like a no-brainer in terms of, why not activate it. We're on Microsoft Edge, Chrome, and Firefox. So, if you have any of those browser extensions, which I think that almost everyone does, you download the extension. We also have a mobile app that is live, and you can earn Bitcoin or sats every day when you play the daily stack. So you tap a button, it pops out, tells you what you won. You can win up to 1 million Satoshis a day. And so, we're literally giving away free money. I give free Bitcoin away on my Twitter account all the time. So there's a lot of ways to really still get involved. Some people in the 2021 cycle feel like it's too late to.
Yeah, that's one of my questions I was going to ask you, because I have a lot of people, now that for the last year or so, I've been, going all in on Bitcoin, and I'm learning what other Bitcoiners go through when it hits this, bull cycle and everybody starts asking questions. And they're like, well, it's too late. What do you say to people that think it's too late? It's 50,000 or whatever it is today, $45,000 for a Bitcoin. I can't afford that, and I know, even when you break it down to them that it can be fractionalized, I think it's still hard for people to wrap their head around how valuable one Satoshi would be. So what would you say to people like that?
I would say, you have two options at this point. You can still, kind of fold your arms and say it's too late for me, or you could get involved. And I think, Bitcoin is, people say it's still early. I don't think we are early anymore. I think we're at like the 92, 93 year of what the internet was on, where it's about to ramp up really hard. So I see Bitcoin going, past $200,000 this year. Like I could see at the end of the year it being that much. Just the way the world is and how crazy everything is, I could totally see that. So, $50,000 isn't achievable probably for the average American. I empathize with that, because I feel like people are, there's people that Satoshis are, achievable. A whole Bitcoin is not anymore, which is crazy. Because even just a year ago, most people could probably buy a Bitcoin at the lowest point at 3,000. It dropped 3,000 last year. So that's crazy. But we're never going to probably be that low ever again. So, if you pay attention to the market, there's a huge dip today. So I would take advantage of those dips, buy in, dollar average in. What?
Oh, I said, oh yeah, I was buying the dip already. I was like,
yeah. I just transferred some more money over. I'm like cash poor because everything's locked up in crypto. So I had to sell some stuff in my brokerage to go buy some more.
I'm glad I'm not the only one doing that.
No, every time I see it, I'm like, this is an opportunity. Everyone's losing their minds. But I think the bump after this is going to be insane. And I mean, I've encouraged my family for years, but what can you do? You can only give people so much advice, and then it's in their hands if they want to do it or not. That's a choice and making your own decisions with your money. So you can't. if you miss the boat, you miss the boat.
Yeah. Well, it's, and it's funny too how the psychology is for people like this. I've been on my parents trying to tell them like, hey, like you should put some like you shouldn't keep your money in your savings account. Like it is getting devalued like crazy. And like I was like, what's it going to take, a negative interest rate for you to take it out?
Yeah.
And so I've been talking to them, and it was so funny. I finally convinced them not to do like, a huge sum, not like buy a whole coin, but a decent amount to be like, okay, we're in this, let's give it a shot. And then my dad calls me after Elon Musk buys. And my dad says, I want to do, and the number he gave me was 1/10 of what I told him to do. And he said, I want to do that. That's what I'm comfortable with. And I was like, why just that much? And he's like, well, I want to hurry up because Elon Musk bought it. And I want to hurry up before it takes off in price. And I was like, did you hear yourself? I was like, you want to do less money because you're afraid it's going to take off. I was like, and it's just that, and you can tell it's that fear that, they're, boomers. So like that generation, it's going to be really hard for them to wrap their heads around cryptocurrency. And so I'm trying to be patient. Are you experiencing that with, family, friends, even just, clients, I'm sure at this point with Lolli?
Yeah. It's interesting. People are still, while there's a lot of institutional investors getting involved, putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, doing all that, there's still a lot of retail brands on our side that are not fully comfortable with Bitcoin. They kind of put it in the like CBD category, taboo industries of things that they don't really want to touch or comment on. So for the Lolli side of that, people are still a little leery. There's some people that are super into Bitcoin. They're very comfortable talking about it as a brand. But with my family, I guess I do give the advice, like only put in what you're comfortable losing. But if you're comfortable, you're probably not going to realize the gains that you wish you would, because, I guess it just kind of depends. Like you kind of have to take a risk at this point to see that risk pay off. And, if people just want to own Bitcoin, they just want to have it, and diversify their portfolio, put 1% in, or, there's people put different estimates on what you should allocate to Bitcoin, and some people do their everything. So it's all like a personal thing, but like the hardest thing is hearing your friends and family kick themselves after. It's like, I've given you this advice, so I don't, you asked me in 2017, you asked me in 2018, and you actually were quiet in 2018. I didn't hear from you in 2018. And then you came back around. So it's hard to be like patient sometimes, because it's like, I did give you guys a lot of chances, and I've also worked at a Bitcoin company. So if you haven't been using Lolli this whole time, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, I do think it's going to go a lot higher. So I don't think it's, we're at the top at all.
Yeah, I think we're a long way away. Like I wonder if I'm even going to see the top in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Like it might just keep going. And that's the way I look at it. I think I try to tell people, you gotta have your time horizon extended, and I look at it as like, well, this is, I'm in my, well, not, I'm almost 35. So I was just about to say I'm in my early 30s, but I guess I can't say that anymore. But like, I'm like, okay, 30 years from now, retirement, what's that going to look like? Because that's what I did. I went crazy. Like I went and put some money in, and then it was like, okay, 401k is gone. I'm going all in. Like, and like you said, it's like I saw the dip today, and I'm like, where can I get some money? Like, what can I sell in my house right now to try and buy some more Bitcoin? Yeah.
I love that. My favorite tweets are people who put out like, cut your own hair so you can buy more Bitcoin. Like it's kind of funny, but I've become the same way. I'm like, do I need a new outfit, or would that money better be spent on Bitcoin? And so it gets you thinking like a maniac sometimes, because you're like, I don't want to buy anything. And I love to buy myself like clothes and stuff. I'm like, that can wait.
Oh yeah. Before we'll end up looking like Christian Bale's rendition of Michael Burry in in The Big Short, like
Yeah.
no shoes on at work, like cutting my own hair or whatever. Like,
I'm
yeah,
looking forward to that movie, the Bitcoin movie that comes out eventually on all of this.
I know. And that's, well, I think I'm sure it's going to come from a Ben, was it Meserich?
Yeah, I keep his last name, but I know the guy with Bitcoin billionaires and stuff like that.
Yeah. And I know that there's already some stuff in the works, and that I'm like, I really want to get in on that. Because I'm not here to show my own companies or whatever, but I have like a streaming platform that we just are in our infancy, closing our Series A funding. So like we've got a ways to go, but I know that this is going to take off, and I want a piece of one of those movies. It's like one of these ones I want to be a part of in some way, shape, or form. Because yeah, I mean, The Big Short's one of my favorite movies. It's just, it's a yearly watch for me. It's like,
yeah,
that, like Jurassic Park, Star Wars, like those are my annual viewings, but yeah. And then I actually had to watch it recently, just whenever the short squeeze was going on with GameStop. I was just like, wow, this is really pertinent. And so it is funny to see, like, what is your average customer signing up for Lolli? Because I try to look in the Bitcoin world, and there's, I would say it's dominated by men. There's more men than women, that at least what I see, just, from like a straw poll on the internet, looking at who's talking about it. And I don't mean this to sound like sexist at all. I'm just saying, in our personal lives, like my wife's the one that's like, oh, rewards based, like get all on that. And I don't think about that stuff so much. So it's like, I think it's interesting that Lolli could be kind of like a merger of those two. Is that what you guys see with your customer base? Do you see, more men than women, or how's it shaking out?
Yeah. Well, Bitcoin, the industry has been primarily men for a long time. And I think people paint that negatively. I don't quite see that as a negative thing. I think it's just a natural, you have like finance and tech overlacing each other. Tech and finance have been traditionally more male dominated for most of the time. There, of course, are women that work in it, but you see less of it. So then you interlace these two things, and naturally there's less women in the beginning. But money is something that everyone cares about. So getting free money specifically, getting rewards, everyone from beginners to people who have been Bitcoin for a long time want to optimize for getting a kickback in Bitcoin. So we see actually, 30% of our user base is women, which is a good number in the crypto Bitcoin space. And women actually are the largest cohort of online shoppers. So we really do feel like we're bringing more women into the space and educating them about Bitcoin. That's something that I'm really proud of as, a woman at a Bitcoin company. I want women to own this asset. I think it's important for them to do so. It gives them like autonomy over their own money. And so I think Bitcoin is actually making things better for women, and will in the long term. It's just they were kind of slower to adopt. But I mean, if I talk about where we were 3 years ago, it's night and day, like compared to the industries that would go to conferences, and I was there with like a handful of other women, and now it's flooded with women. And I think that's amazing. I think that it should be that way. Money can't really just work on one gender. So
yeah,
that'd be kind of weird. But so it's good to see. And we've had hundreds of thousands of users now on Lolli's platform, and it's only really growing from here. So it's exciting times, especially in this market.
Yeah, and it's really exciting. Like I'm hearing more. I always say that men are typically dumber. Like with my,
say anything on that.
You're not gonna fight me on that one. So I kind of have this, like, when my wife started to come around to Bitcoin, and first she was like, okay, he's talking about something crazy. And now it's like, she gets it. And I'm like looking at her like, if she thinks it's a good idea, I should do it, because, she weighs everything out, and like is much more analytical than I am, where I'm like, kind of like gung ho, like it's the Wild West. Let's go, let's So,
Well, I love that they say like women aren't like emotional investors, or they are. Or people they will say that women are like too emotional. And then you get on crypto Twitter, and all the men are like losing their
I
minds.
know.
Anytime so it's a little bit like ironic, but yeah, I do think that I don't think that people need to be full on experts, about Bitcoin to own the asset. I think you need to know you need to know like how to manage your private keys, and you need to know how to, work an exchange, and you need to know basic finance, and you're good to go. I don't think people need to really get into the weeds of everything, because that's just not feasible for everyone to do. It's just not going to happen. Maybe over time, but think about how long we took to go from like checkbooks to like, you still have people writing checks too at the grocery store, like checkbooks to a credit card. Like even that move took 50 years. So, people are still.
It's funny. I remember like whenever I, got a bank account and everything, it was like my parents sat me down and were like, okay, this is how you balance a checkbook, and like we started going through everything and I cut them off. I was like, I can just go on the internet and look. And they were like, why would you do that? And I was like, because that tells me exactly how much money is in there. Like, but the checkbook, and you're like, and then you just kind of realize there's that divide. It's like, well, it's not going to happen, I guess.
It's funny that boomers get in the mix, but Gen X, Gen X never is like the generation that gets no blowover. It's like millennials versus boomers, and then like millennials versus Gen Z a little bit. But then Gen X just like slides through I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, how big it is with it, but I don't even know. I feel like they need some attention too, because I feel like they're kind of some of them are in the boomer space.
Gen X, I think their biggest contribution to the technological space has been showing that you can have two people on one Facebook account, because that's
that's actually really funny.
I've always like, my brother is like borderline Gen X millennial, and I just love the fact that him and his wife still have a joint Twitter account or Facebook account, and I'm just like, we always play a game. We're like, which one do you think it was that posted this? Like, there was a meme one time I saw that said, nothing says my balls are in her purse more than sharing a Facebook account or something like that.
That's actually my parents, but
yeah. Oh yeah. That's a lot of people's parents.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, sure. Rob / Stephanie, whatever.
So what are some of the biggest brands? I mean, people can go on your website and see, but what are some of the bigger brands and some of the newer brands that have joined Lolli?
So we actually just partnered with eBay, which is crazy because they've been around,
forever,
years, like so now, which is, and now we're giving Bitcoin back. We have huge names like Nike, Adidas. If you're doing travel, that's a great category to get free rewards on. A huge hack is if you do office supplies or anything for your company or your business, use that on there too.
Okay.
So printer, toner, if you're buying it, use the Lolli extension. And but yeah, we have like all clothing brands, Macy's, Sam's Club, Lululemon, grocery stores. So you can actually go to our stores page and search by category to find anything you want. I mean, even for Valentine's Day, you could order flowers for your significant other and get Bitcoin back. So there's almost nothing that you can not get Bitcoin back for. So there's so much.
And how did Lolli start? What's the backstory to the company?
Yeah, so the two co-founders, Alex and Matt, used to work together at a company called Cosmic that was acquired in 2017, and then they started Lolli in 2018. But Alex, the name is, people always ask about the name. They're like, why is it called Lolli? And Alex explains this, he used to go to the bank with his dad as a kid, and they would always have like those lollipops at the thing. So it's kind of cute because it's like you get the reward for going to the bank. But that's what he named it. And yeah, he basically, had this idea for a long time that no one was doing rewards. There was no real rewards model out there for Bitcoin. And he's just worked in the e-commerce space for so long, said this was like, we got to build this, built it in a bear market, and it's paid off. So it's amazing to see the rise. I've been at Lolli for almost 2 years, and we just keep getting bigger and bigger merchants coming on board, people wanting to partner with us. We have so many users, and it's exciting. It's great to work at a company where you can actually like on any day of the week, I can give, money away on my personal account, the company's account, and we're giving people an asset that will be very valuable to them in the future. So that feels good.
Mm-hmm. So if you hear that, free money at Aubrey Strobel, you can find her on Twitter. So you're giving away whole coins, I assume, right?
Yeah, I wish. No, I give away at least every week I give around like $150 in Bitcoin to, a user, someone that has Lolli. So what you want to do if you want to be eligible for the giveaways is sign up for Lolli, claim your stats tag, or that's basically like your username on Lolli. Mm-hmm. And so when I do the giveaway, you can drop it in the comments and the replies on Twitter, and then you're entered to win. So we do giveaways on that all the time. We have another Twitter account called Lolli Deals where we basically like highlight when something's on sale and where you can get a lot of Bitcoin back for it. So you can track that. And then our main Twitter account's a lot of just Bitcoin memes and jokes, but that's still a good follow as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's great, especially at times like this, whenever it's, just we have a dip. I mean, it's funny to see how the memes change, with the current market. But so are you guys ever going to get into like the credit card space, or are you going to stick with the rewards extension route?
Yeah, so I think there's going to be some updates to the platform and what more incentivizations for people to come onto Lolli. I think it's going to expand out. I can't talk too much about what it's going to look like yet because it's anything, but it's going to be larger than a browser extension at some point. So once the mobile app is fully live, which it should be shortly, even though you can still earn on the app, you'll be able to do other things through the browser extension. So it's going to be really exciting. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll come back on the show and announce, whenever I can announce it properly what we're going to do at Lolli. So
yeah. And so you guys do, I mean, do you have to capture the spread? Like, how do you do an instant transfer or do you just work off of, because with how volatile the price is, I'm always curious when rewards or something like that, like the price is always changing.
Yeah. So basically the price is locked in depending on what the retailer is. So if you're getting Postmates, which is honestly, I think I earn the most sats at Postmates. Your confirmation is pretty final because, once they deliver the food to your place, they lock that transaction in. There's some things that are different. If you buy clothing, it will, depending on the retailer, take until the return period is over for it to actually lock in because they don't want you returning it, and so it depends retailer by retailer when the confirmation is confirmed. But we give you like an estimated, what we believe the price will be locked in once you make the purchase, and that comes in your email. So it's a little complicated because there is such a fluctuation in the price.
Yeah. Okay. That's it's funny too, because people complain about like the speed of Bitcoin and how long it takes to settle the any kind of transfer. But it was like, if you own a business, it takes a while for like Visa to settle. Like it's not instantaneous. So I feel like that I imagine that's probably one of the big challenges for a company like yours. So what would you say you think, where do you think you already said you think this year it'll go to like 200K? What kind of bull cycle do you think we're going to be on here? Like what kind of bull run do you see for the next? I mean, the halving was just in May of last year. So, we have another 3.5 years.
Yeah. I think what we're seeing here is different than 2017 in the way that in 2017, I think we just saw like a glimpse of what this bull run is going to be. And I think we only held over 18,000 for like, was it like 7 days or something like that? It wasn't that long. It was exciting, but it wasn't that long of a cycle. With this run, it feels different, I think, because where we are in society. And I think there's a really cool study if you zoom out and look at Bitcoin obviously when it was created, but it came about, right after the housing crisis. And we're talking about like the Big Short, but that was 2008. Bitcoin comes around 2009, and it was like a real need for the world. And now you see the world kind of coming back into sort of like a chaotic sense. We have government shut down. There's a lot of distrust in institutions and distrust in the financial, system. We got like these GameStop hearings. So I think that and you have people online all the time that are really paying attention during the pandemic, which I think makes things different, where people weren't maybe paying as close attention as they were before. So I think all those things coming together, and even you see Elon Musk getting on board. You have, Michael Saylor buying billions of Bitcoin,
buying just another billion with this dip or something.
Exactly. So you see that kind of those things going on, and it's become a different cycle. It's not you don't see market movements because of big whales trading things. You have big institutions buying things now, and they're not selling. So it's all up for here. And then you have the retail investors that have sort of woken up as well. So all of that stuff is coming together. I think we'll have some corrections on the way up, but I do not see it slowing down. And I think a day like today, like I said, is a day to really get in and try to get as much as you feel comfortable buying, because I really do think it's only up from here. And I think, I would tell everyone to zoom out and look at a price chart past 10 years. If they're getting upset over I don't know, what was it? A 10, well, not even a 5% correction today. I don't even know.
Something like that. Yeah.
It wasn't even that. I mean, we've seen worse. We've seen way worse. So everyone's going to be okay. I promise.
Yeah. And like you said, as long as you're not investing more than you're willing to lose, but even I have people say, they're like, well, what if it goes to zero? And I'm like, in theory, it's in theory, it's possible, but there's no way it's happening.
Technically, yes, but it's nearly impossible for that to happen.
I would buy all of the Bitcoin if possible. If it dropped, I would be buying as much.
There'd be always something. Yeah, exactly.
Before we started this, and I looked, I checked in Bitcoin, it had gone down to 45,000, and I actually out loud said yes. I was I was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Hopefully my money is settled out of it takes forever to come out of my other account so I can buy some more.
I know. And it's always,
which is also the other thing I think we don't talk about it enough is the stock market closing. We talk about, sending payments and that being such a slow process, but the fact that you can't just trade on the weekends or after 4:30 is such a joke. I think we're in 2021 now. We need to move on. We need a new system. This is it's ridiculous. Or the President's Day, you have a government holiday and everything stops. It makes no sense. It's not a free market.
It's crazy. Yeah, I know. President's Day, it was closed. And then I also I've never gotten into stocks, but
really?
I just haven't been a stocks person. I had a 401k and just rode with it.
You got straight into Bitcoin and crypto. Is that that? That is so funny to me.
Yep. Yeah, I went right past it. And then I was getting a little cocky, come this fall when Airbnb went public. And so I thought I had seen enough from people that were on Twitter, wow, this is really undervalued, what they said they were going to open at. So me being stupid and not knowing, and I was like, I'm going to drop a couple grand on that today. It's going to double. There's no way. It's definitely going to double. And then I didn't realize that there was a 2-hour period where all the traders got together and made secret deals in the morning that you weren't allowed to be a part of. And because I was I think it was supposed to open at 60 something. And I was oh yeah, everybody's saying it's going to be at least 120, 130. I was this is an easy double up. I put money in the account, ready to go, 9:30 in the morning. I get on and I'm why can't I buy it? and then it comes on at like 11 or whatever, and it was already up to like 130, and I was like, what is going, like, I was so mad. I'm like, what happened? And yeah, that's when I found out that they have this little party in the morning where nobody else is allowed to trade except the insider trading.
Exactly. It's like it's an adult casino. I think that everyone needs to realize it's like rigged against the everyman. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's that exact story right there is like a testament to why it's such a broken system, right?
Yeah. And then you have politicians that, the amount of insider trading that like probably happens. I don't know anything. Don't come after me, politicians. I don't know anything, but it's like, come on, like, you see the things that happen, and it's both sides of the aisle. I always tell people, I'm like, there is not one politician. You were in politics, so I guess you might feel a little different, but I'm like, there's not one politician that is on your side. Like,
Yeah.
it is a game against you, and
Yeah.
it's rigged. And so I think that's why I went straight into Bitcoin. I'm like, oh, this is an off ramp. Just wanted to get into some of like the deeper thoughts of like Bitcoin. Like, I look at it as a potentially the greatest invention for humanity. Because you look at how the middle class is getting squeezed. And what are your thoughts on all that? Like, seeing how they're in this rat race of never ending inflation, devaluing of their currency. And then along comes this Bitcoin that can save the day and be this off ramp for everybody. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin as like the bigger picture?
I mean, I totally see that. And to even take like a larger stance on it, I would agree with, first of all, I would agree with you, saying it's, one of the best inventions. Maybe next to fire in the wheel,
Yeah.
like one of the best inventions in history. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin was so needed. And I think that like the craziness of, this pseudonymous person, Satoshi Nakamoto, creating it and just kind of spinning it out into the world, and without really any power control over what happens to it after that a certain point is, amazing. And it really is a money of the people. It's been needed. You look at basically all sorts of technology, and everything except for money has really advanced. And so people talk about like class warfare. Will that happen? But you kind of do see that happening with what was going on. You do see people not being able, it's a little bit of like a French Revolution online, and it's coming about in an interesting way through memes, and you got Elon Musk and Peter Schiff and people fighting all the time. And then you have Redditors getting involved. And so it's sort of taking a new form. But I think history will look back on Bitcoin as a very like laissez-faire approach to finance. And I think, it'll be incredibly valuable, not just for our generation, but for posterity, or, future generations. They're going to be like my parents, my family, they own Bitcoin. And that's going to be like, oh my gosh, your family is a full Bitcoin. That's going to be the flex of 20, I don't know, 100, I don't know. Yeah, I'll all be dead, so I don't really know. But
yeah,
I think it definitely has revolutionized the world. But I don't think this isn't the final form. I think there's a lot of like layer 2 solutions that will make Bitcoin easier to work with, along with like Ethereum and other sort of DeFi projects. I don't think it will take over. I think there will always be some sort of fiat currency, some sort of government currency. But I think that Bitcoin will like replace gold.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Don't tell Peter Schiff.
Yeah. Actually, you tell him, take this clip, send it done.
Yeah, he's gonna hold on to those gold coins, for the rest of his life. Yeah, my precious, like Smeagol. I think that they're like, you see things like the Lightning Network. I think that's what's fascinating about it, is that it was this base that can be built upon. And I mean, there was the whole schism with like Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash and everything like that. And now it's like firmly become like you like one or the other. I always tell people I own one Ethereum coin just for the hell of it. Like whenever I was
Yeah.
buying initially, I was like, oh, I guess I might as well buy one because I've heard a lot about it. But it does concern me that there's no cap and there's it seems to be some holes in the system.
But I think that's something we didn't articulate on this. I think is important is really talking about capped supply on a lot of these tokens, because just like, the government, you can print more, make more tokens. And that's, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the ICO, STO, like all these, phases that we went through. People basically had no cap supply on all these tokens, which they do have value, but, really what brings, I think, something value is a cap supply. And so for the people who are new to your show, not aware, there are only going to be 21 million Bitcoin mined. So that's something that makes it different than Ethereum for people that are investing. I think it's important to note because I think we say it a lot, but I'm not sure if everyone else knows that.
Yeah, and I hate to be bashing on my dad. I'm not bashing on my dad, but it's a standard boomer thought when I was explaining to him the 21 million and everything, and I had mentioned at some point that Satoshi holds 1 million Bitcoin or however many and my dad said, well, what happens when he puts those into circulation? That's going to devalue the rest of your Bitcoin. And I said, Dad, 25% of the US dollars in existence came into existence after March of 2020.
Exactly.
Like I was like, that's way worse than 1 out of 20, 1/20th of the supply coming in.
Yeah, totally. I think people have no idea what goes on with like the Fed. I have a friend that actually works at the Fed, and she watches like the process of how they burn like basically cash if it's either supposed to be like I guess if there's disease on it, if it's dirty, and it's just like they basically incinerate cash and everyone kind of like moves on. But people don't even realize like how inefficient that is. And that costs so much money. Yeah. And they have to have like a secret service in there watching it. And there's someone that it's just like an entire process. And the fact that we're just trusting these people to make sure that the money is actually burnt and that it's out of like, I'm sure it's fine, but I don't trust it. Like I'd rather just have something backed by math that I'm into than, all these different corporations, people, interest groups around my money. Like I don't trust it. I'm just maybe I'm like a conspiracy theory person, but I'm like I don't trust the process for the government.
Oh yeah, no, that's fully where I am. Like I'm looking to buy land, and I want like natural water source, self-sustaining energy. Like I feel like I've gone crazy where I'm like, I don't know what this pandemic has done to me, but like all of a sudden I want to have, like somebody said, it's like a citadel where you just have like your barrier. Nobody, I maybe a moat wouldn't be a bad idea. Like let's get back to the drawbridge and the moat. But yeah, I think that, I also found out too, did you know the Fed is a private company?
I did know that. I still don't understand how that's possible, but it's weird. My friend was telling me a lot of interesting stuff about how the employees at the Fed are paid. They like invest, and I'm like, how do they know what to invest in? They invest in some sort of asset, and then they take like dividends from that and pay their employees or something like that. Something bizarre.
It's just like
none of it makes sense.
The most fishy thing possible. Let's make this seem as strange as possible. And then the fact that they just, print the money. I mean, the things that, the quantitative easing, that's the thing I've been, shouting from the mountaintops for people, like, because that's the thing when I realized, like when they printed money in March or April, whenever that was, I was like, oh my God, I need to buy Bitcoin. I did that. And then I started listening to podcasts and I was like, this quantitative easing, they've been printing money since 2008. And I think at this point, 75% of the dollars in circulation didn't exist before the housing crash. And it's like, oh my God, this is a huge, huge problem. And so that's why I went crazy and went around and grabbed everything I could and sold it and put it on Bitcoin, because I was just like, this is nuts, and it's this private company that doesn't have, they don't have anybody to answer to except for themselves.
Exactly.
It's wild.
I get inspired when I talk about like how, like you just said, like all that money was printed after the crisis, like majority of it was printed after the housing crisis and like 2009, 2008. Yeah. So it's crazy how Bitcoin came around at the right exact time and how Satoshi knew. She have that foresight? I don't know, but I kind of feel like so, which is kind of inspirational to have that, some sort of like vision like that,
Yeah. And it also leads to my 1% theory. There's a 1% chance that Satoshi's from the future and just sent it like digitally to the past at the right exact time.
Well, I have goosebumps.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that really hit you. What's that?
It gives me like Interstellar vibes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like exactly in the movie Interstellar, when he gets into the Tesseract, and they from the future set the Tesseract up to catch him.
This is my favorite new like conspiracy theory now.
Oh, well, then you're going to have, so again, not to show my own things, but so I'm making a documentary called Searching for Satoshi. And it's really, I say this all the time so that if Satoshi's listening, I'm not trying to dox Satoshi. But I think that it's the interesting thread to pull on to bring in the average person to learn about Bitcoin is to have a documentary searching and trying to seek out who is Satoshi. And so the more that I started researching it and everything, that's where I kept, this thought came into my head, like, well, what if he was from the future? And like, you can't travel to the past physically, but you could send a digital message, and I was like, that's just a crazy thought. And I mean, I'm a filmmaker. So like, I am always having creative out of the box ideas, but it kept gnawing away at me. Like maybe it is. And so then I thought, well, what if I make this, I was already planning on doing the documentary, but I thought, how cool would it be if like he popped up on a message board and like said, I'm willing to answer questions about, from the documentary. And like, I would ask him, are you from the future? And like, I just picture that like blinking cursor, like waiting for him to reply. And then like him saying yes or something and just like, blowing everybody's minds. Again, like I
Christopher Nolan.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like a future Christopher Nolan. If he doesn't, if you, you better get this out there because this is after Tenet or whatever was out. It seems like the thing he would make.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I already have. Are you a fan of Star Wars?
Yes.
Okay. So I have like I said, I was like, I could imagine a sci-fi movie of like, at the end of Rogue One when they're trying to get the Death Star plans to the ship. But instead it's like a thumb drive that has Bitcoin's blockchain and everything in the white paper on it. And it's like the people from the future sending it to the past, and like the galactic empire is trying to stop Bitcoin in its tracks because they know that it'll undo their power.
Wow.
Yeah, like
I love this. I'm in full support. Let me know when this drops because I want to watch it.
Well, you're now. The reason I brought it up, not to shill the documentary, but you're going to have to be interviewed in it now because that's like I want to ask everybody in the Bitcoin world, like, who do you think Satoshi is? Where does the evidence lead? And then also to get into that bigger discussion of like, what is, Satoshi. So if you're willing to be in the documentary, that's something that we can arrange. All right. Well, I guess, I mean, I don't have my final question is always, what do you say if it's too late, if people think it's too late, but you already answered that. So what would you say a year from now we're going to be talking about in the Bitcoin world?
I think most banks will have integrated Bitcoin in a year. because they'll just get left behind if not. I think that'll have to be offered. I think, like I said, the price is going to be over 200,000. And I think that it will be even though I don't think people should use it as a payment method, I think businesses will integrate it as some sort of, payment method because obviously they want it. So it'll be offered at, you'll probably see the Bitcoin symbol at most stores at like a point of service payment situation where you could either use a QR code or something like that to tap and pay almost anywhere you go.
My conundrum with businesses doing that is I can't think of something valuable enough to offer to people that they'd be willing to give me their Bitcoin instead of cash. Like, everybody that's in it should be.
Do you think about the Papa John's?
What's that?
What? Sorry.
Oh no,
I was saying, Papa John's has been Bitcoin for a long time. They got the Bitcoin pizza back in 2010. So they had like 50. Right. How much was it? They had
like $50 million now. Like I think it was like $10,000.
Yeah, I don't know what the price is now, but they have millions of dollars Bitcoin just because of on one pizza. I mean, if they still have it, who knows if they still have it? We don't know. But.
Yeah, well, that's what people always say. I think I saw somebody tweet that if you had bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin 10 years ago, you'd have $980 because you would have sold it after it dropped $20. All right, well, Aubrey, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Thanks again to Aubrey for joining me on the show. You can follow her on Twitter at Aubrey Strobel. And you can also follow Lolli, which is Lolli, and the Twitter handle is at TryLolli. Website's lolli.com. I think it's really good. She brings up a good point about how it's a good way to get new people into Bitcoin and kind of a soft introduction for them. Maybe they're a little too nervous to try investing, but whenever they earn rewards and see it grow, maybe they'll change their mind. So thanks again to everybody for listening, and I'll catch you guys next time.